You can count on.
20 minutes gone past the hour of 11, and of course, it's the second hour here on the Meet the Extra show where we get to talk about agricultural practices. Now, last week we started something. We started off by talking about, some agricultural terminologies. And yes, I did say that it will be an opportunity for us to familiarize ourselves with these things so that when we have professionals in the field and they start to have conversations, there'll be no need for them to explain these things again because they already know, or you already know what they're trying to talk about. So I'll just refresh our minds on what we talked about last week, and then we'll leave Rachel Holy Ray to do her thing, the rest of the update for us right here. Now, the first on the list, we talked about plowing, tilling, and harrowing. For tilling, it is the most general term and it refers to any mechanical agitation of the soil. Plowing and harrowing are types of tilling as well. Now, before we go on, let me tell us that we are back and better on Radio Garden, so you can now go and download the Eagles FM app. Go and download it. We're there, we're active, and the most important thing is now we give you graphical representations of what we're talking about here on air. So per adventure, you get confused about the things we're talking about, just head on to our YouTube page at Eagles FM Abuja, and then you get a clear picture of the conversation we're having. Of course, you can see the beautiful faces of every single one of us speaking here. Rachel is fire, Benedicta is fire, but Martha is just a regular girl.
Fire.
No, regular girl doing regular things. But you guys head on to the YouTube page and catch up with every single one of your favorite shows here at Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja. So yes, this is a continuation of the conversation we had last week, Wednesday, about this. So tilling is the most general term, and we said it's a mechanical agitation of the soil. Plowing and harrowing are also types of tilling. Now, plowing refers to taking the top layer of the soil, turning it over, flipping it upside down, and this is to bury anything that is growing on the surface. So like when you have weeds on your farm, what you do basically is use your hoe, turn, flip over, keep flipping it over so that the nutrients underneath the ground can now be on the surface, can enable the crops that you'll be planting to grow properly. So yes, it also helps you expose nutrients that are below the surface and for other reasons, as well. Now, harrowing is more like how do I call it, cutting or scraping the soil, and it's used for multiple purposes, including preparing the seed bed. So remember, all of these are tilling. They're types of tilling, but plowing and harrowing, they are also types of tilling. Now, this is what we said. Now, we also did talk about arable land, pastures, and meadows. Now, arable land is basically farmland. It can just refer to any land that is capable of growing crops. So, for the purpose of agriculture, it is the land currently being used for crops. You can just say that. And we're talking about the kind of crops that have to be replanted each year. Arable land is distinguished from permanent cropland, such as orchards and vineyards, where we have to plant specific crops. But an arable land is any land that is capable of growing crops. So you can call it a fertile ground. Now, a pasture and a meadow, they are both fields. Now, they are both fields where grass and similar plants are grown to feed livestock. Now, the difference is, for the pasture, you let the livestock live and graze there. Even on our way here, you'd see this cows there. They live on that land and they eat, they feed there.
Feed from the
so
weed.
It's a pasture, yes. Now, but a harrow or a meadow is quite different. This is just that crop is there, that weed is there, where these livestock will feed on, but you save the grass that is in the middle to make hay, so that when there are no green or fresh grasses anymore, they can now feed from on those ones. It's to feed the livestock in the winter, and we know that the winter is probably where the grasses are dry and not fresh and all of that. So yes, a meadow. For a pasture, the livestock lives and grazes on the farmland or on that land. But for a meadow, the grasses are grown, to feed the livestock. They are stored, away for winter when they can no longer have all of that. But so yes, we also talked about intensive and extensive farming. Do you remember this in what do you call it? Secondary school. Like, what is intensive farming? Intensive farming is blah 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 blah. It's agriculture. It's a more efficient system of agriculture. It uses less land and more output and all of that.
But you're still really coherent.
No, but extensive agriculture, you're not very efficient. This is the type that you're not a professional in the field. That's how I can differentiate it. Extensive agriculture, you don't need to know everything about the land. You don't need to know everything about the crop. It's just like the one you do at your backyard, where subsistence farming can also be categorized under an extensive form of agriculture, because you don't need all of the requisite knowledge and all of that. But for intensive agriculture, now you are doing it in a more efficient way, and you can use less land unit, or land per unit, and you get quite a remarkable output. Now we talked about also agribusiness. First of all, we said acre and hectares, the differences in the size and the measurement, but it is a standard unit of measurement for a farmland. Then we talked about agribusiness as well. It's the entire chain of commercial farming for commercial purposes, and anything you plant and you take to the marketplace and you transact with, it is agribusiness. So it is the entire chain of commercial farming, from sufficient production to earning a profit, up to investment and modernizations of equipment to reduce costs and increase profit margins. So yes, this is it. Then we also did talk about agriculture generally. It's a general term for the practice of raising and cultivating livestock and plants. Without the development of agriculture, we don't know where we are. We'll be right now.
We can't even survive without.
We probably might not be existing. But anyways,
what are we going to be eating?
What will we be doing?
That is when. Sorry for diverting a little bit. When you remember that movie, Sophia in London?
Yeah.
When it's I don't understand. I'm expecting a goosey soup and correct a bar.
And this is what I'm seeing here. Anyways, but agriculture, is. It's as old as human existence, because at that time people transacted with agriculture.
Strictly on agriculture. And then that's why we have this trade by barter, where you give me yam to collect,
and I give you your daughter.
Your
child.
Yeah, I marry your child.
God, it
was so amazing. It was so seamless, no trouble there.
Like this now, you're gonna exchange Rachel for yam.
I tell you,
Jesus.
You just say you bring 100 tubers of yam, and then you have a wife.
Anyways, moving on, we talked about agronomy. And it is the science of growing and raising crops on the farmland. Agronomy. Then aquaculture. Now, why we say agronomy, I can just say aquaculture is the direct opposite of agronomy. While you grow and raise crops on the farm, you do this in water. So aquaculture is farming, but not on land, in water.
Yes.
Now, and it can involve raising fish ponds or even plants grown in flooded fields.
They even have rice that grow in those
flooded fields, right?
So is it the one that is called paddy rice? I think so.
But I just know rice is
also grown in
swampy.
That's where I've watched them growing up. I watched my dad and uncles do that tilling, where you explain the first part that you just have to turn the soil up and down. So they then use the other part of it to plant the rice. I can do that a little bit.
You saw your parents. I did it. I farmed.
I did too. What are you trying to say right now?
Anyways, guys, that's aquaculture. And then when we talk about barn, it's typically. It's a large and it's a roofed structure used for housing animals and feed as well. So if there's a barn for animals and there's that for food, and where you farm at the end of the day, you have it harvest and you put it in your barn. Yeah. So modern barn comes in variety of sizes and styles depending on the farmer's needs and the type of animal they will be used for. Now we also did talk about a bovine. A bovine is anything related to cattle or raising of cattle. That's what it's called, a bovine. Now a bushel is a standard unit of measurement for crops. Say 1 bushel of rice. It's like we have mudus now. We have painters now where we used to measure crops. A bushel is a standard unit of measurement for crops, and a modern day bushel measurement is about 64 pints, and Any single bundle or measurement of a dry crop or product can informally be referred to as a bushel as well. Now, we talked about co-op, and co-op is basically cooperative. It's a farmer cooperative. It can also be called a farmers cooperative. It's a group of farmers working together for mutual benefit of all members. Okay. It benefits all members. Now, they have greater purchasing power, they have wider product distribution, and they have greater negotiating power. So, say for instance, the example I did last week was, where you want to empower those women in rural communities, and then you give them the equipment they can use to farm and all of that. Most of them, as the slightest frustration, they go and sell off all of those things. So, but when you open up a farmers cooperative now, where the decision of the business is not dependent on me alone.
It's not individual.
So the business is preserved, number one. What co-op does for you, the business is preserved. You now have a larger, wider product distribution. Your purchasing power is high because it's not the effort of one person. In an instance where one person gets lazy or gets demotivated from doing what they ought to do, we have about a couple of other people who can push the business to where exactly they want it to be. So co-op or farmers cooperative is one of the most efficient ways or systems of farming that increases the product capacity or the purchasing power or the harvest capacity of farmers. It's basically
of the business and farming,
a group of farmers working together for mutual benefit of all members. Now, we call a combines. Combines are large. They are tractor-like vehicles used for harvesting grain. Before, people would use their hands. People would use manually constructed equipment to do that. But a combine, when you hear a combines, they're large. They're like tractors, and they're used basically for harvesting of grains.
That can make it faster. Instead of going to use your hands and the knife, to harvest rice.
I wonder how we were able to do that at that time.
We did. I did that too. Where you now like today we're going out for rice, for harvest of rice and all of that. So you are on this line, this person is here. All we do is not even your hands in harvesting the rice, and then you come again, use your hands to to hit it. There's a way they used to do it then. You hit until the rice is out from the shaft and all of that. It was quite stressful. So with the help of this,
let me tell you, I used to run away from agricultural class. I'm not even joking. Because they tell you go and farm. Oh no, I went to a boarding school, so all of these things, there's no way you can escape.
You can't escape,
but I did.
They are all part of the courses. I did. And subjects.
I successfully escaped it. So don't worry about that. Don't ask me how, but I did. Anyways, we also did talk about crop.
Yes.
No, I don't think we've gotten into a commodity. A commodity is a crop that is traded in the market. So when it's on the farmland, it's called a crop, but when it moves from the farmland to the marketplace, it is called a commodity. Now, a compost is a decomposed organic matter. Manure is a compost, usually made from accumulated food scraps and other matters like manure, like I said, decomposed food, anything basically decomposed. They are compost that provides nutrients for plants and help enrich the soil. Now, we also did talk about contour farming. It is a practice which involves planting seeds at a perpendicular angle to the slope of the land to decrease soil erosion. Now, a cover top purposes to improve and protect the soil between plantings of the regular crop. So yes, we've been leaving Rachel to deal with crop rotation, erosion, ethanol, feeds, fertilizer, fodder, fungicide. So let's leave the coin. She says she has farmed.
I don't understand.
I'll give you guys first-hand information.
I can even on air farm for you right now.
You can farm on air.
Of course, now.
I don't want to.
I plant granules. I plant farm. I do rice. I do a whole lot of things. All right. Having said all of this, I mean, Martha, you sound like you are a very, very big and experienced agricultural personnel.
I'm not. So
I'm going to use that.
I told you I escaped
it. Okay, so talking about that.
Crop rotation.
Crop rotation, right? That's where I'm going to be starting from right about now, which is the practice of planting different crops in a successive seasons prevents draining the soil of vital nutrients. All right. How do I explain much about this? The practice of planting different crops in successive seasons prevents draining the soil of vital nutrients, and of course, not to forget talking about erosion. I mean, sometimes in those days, I watch how we can do like rice planting, and because there was no proper care of thinking of how the waters are going to pass through when it rains. I see that we plant today and it rains that night, and we go the next day and that rice or whatever it is we planted at that space, it could even be breaches. It's washed out by erosion. So you see, that is why it's always very, 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 very important to know that sometimes while we do all of that, we'll think about the erosion. You plan and also look at the soil, the surface, and everything. That way you will know. So talking about erosion, right, is the relocation of soil by wind or water. Just like I said, erosion is a major problem faced by large-scale farmers. Just like I told you, there was one day, we went to the farm, and my mom was like, "I don't understand. What's in this one? It's not village people. It's just because we did not plan
properly.
We didn't plan properly. That was what happened." All right. So the infamous Dust Bowl of the Great Depression was caused in part by soil erosion stemming from poor farming techniques. We've said it all, Martha. That is the thing. So sometimes when we are planning to see that we grow crops and plant in a very, very fertile environment, also think of some of these things, put them in place.
Yeah.
That way we can see how you don't just waste your energy for nothing. All right, talking about ethanol. Ethanol is an alcohol-based fuel derived rather. Ethanol is an alcohol-based fuel derived from a number of organic sources, primarily corn. Wow. Sometimes when I study about corn, maize, that's maize, right? I get really surprised as to how many things will this one corn like this produce. Corn is into so many things. You can swallow, you can do pap, you can do custard, there's another one they call agidi.
With corn?
Yes, they do corn with agidi too.
Right.
So corn is into so many things. So, and then the fresh one and all of that. So that is what is ethanol right there. And of course, feed. There are 3 types of animal feed on the farm. You say we taught most of these things in primary. I tell you, in secondary school.
And mixes.
So a whole lot. So you talk about the rough age, concentrates, and mixes, just like you've said it. Each type of animal will require its own specialized feed in line with the dietary needs. Yeah. With that, of course, you cannot have to feed goats with something else that is meant for the chicken or meant for poultry. Well, also fish farming. So I get to say that
fish is very delicate. The moment you feed a fish with what is not,
you will lose all of them. You will lose all of them. So sometimes it's good that while we're putting that in place for a successful agriculture, you have to make sure that you carry all of this in line. Check their meal, their food. I lost my very beautiful puppy. Oh my God, Zara, because of wrong feed. I mean, I wasn't around, and my girl, I don't know what she mixed in its food. You know, these puppies that must do this, must drink milk, I spent a lot for that, but finally, I lost my beautiful puppy right there. But if it was a serious business to say agriculture, definitely I will look at some of these things being in place to ensure that she didn't die. All right, so talking about fertilizer. These days, for a successful agriculture, you must make sure that you add a little bit of fertilizer to get that rich crops, right, Martha, that rich crop. And back in those days, that our old parents, our ancestors weren't using fertilizers. The lands were fertile on its own. you know, when the land is a virgin. So they were the ones that enjoyed this fertile ground where you plant yam, you go to harvest the yam during the season, you harvest a very big yam. But these days, those things need to be assisted with a little bit of fertilizer. So fertilizer is any organic or inorganic substance or chemical applied to the soil to help provide nutrients to the crops.
And yes, the manure I talked about, they also are organic substances.
Similar.
Inorganic is, modified, chemicalized, and all of that. But any organic substance that aids in the growing of your crop, makes it grow healthier, makes it grow faster, and all of that. It's called a fertilizer. So yes, fertilizers can be organic or inorganic. They can also be chemicals applied to the soil to provide nutrients to the crop. And we're at a place now where we're trying to retrace our steps agriculturally as a nation. And then we see that the federal government had promised to give fertilizers to farmers. Affordable rates. These are things that encourage farming,
to enhance their farming.
Because I remember one time when, we decided that, okay, we've had talks and talks about people saying you can grow what you eat yourself, you can all of those stories. And then we decided to just farm yam because we consume a lot of yam. And then at the end of the day, we got very small finger-like yams. Now, number one, the people who were supposed to put fertilizers in that farm failed to do that, so it didn't grow well. Number two, the soil was not probably tilled properly, so the yam did not. I don't know how
it doesn't have that free surface from the underground.
Do you get
that? To grow more and bigger. So it's always good that you till very, very deep. You know how it is now. If you're expecting something big, till it well. Let it be big. Let there be space.
And fertilizers are also a very important aspect of farming. So wherever you hear fertilizer, know that it is important for ensuring that your crops grow very well. How does it contribute? Because it provides nutrients to the crops. Now, when you hear of a fodder, some people say fodder, some say fodder. But whatever you call it, is FODDER. And I think it's supposed to be pronounced fodder. Now, there are stalks, there are leaves, and other detrits left behind after harvest that can be used. So it's also an example of roughage. And roughage is part of the feed where we talked about the 3 types of animal feed: the roughage, the concentrates, and the mixes as well. Now, the fodder also is when you have farmed yam, and you're also in that same farm. How can you even be farming yam and goats at the same time? But anyway, it's very risky.
That is why those matter is very risky. That is why if you're having a ban for yam and a ban for goats, they have to be separate.
I'm very safe.
It would not be like you're carrying granules to go and give cats.
Yes. So if you have a farm where you do both livestock and crop, that's food now. At the end of the farming season or the harvesting season, you know that, okay, I have a goat that I'm farming on that same farmland. So I can harvest my yam, but anyone I've seen, it doesn't grow very well. Stalks, ranging from stalks, the leaves, the detritus that are left behind after the harvest, it can be used to feed your goats. So this is called a fodder. Anything that any stalk or any leaf or anything left behind after harvest can be used for animal feed is called a fodder. Now, also when you hear about fungicides, what do you mean? In layman's language, is anything that can be used to kill fungi, anything that can be used to destroy fungi in the farmland. Now, fungi, you see it manifest in some plants as holes in the leaves, discolored leaves, some of all these things. Now, a fungicide is a chemical that is used to treat fungi-infected plants and seeds. The chemical also, just like fertilizers, can be organic or inorganic. So a fungicide is a chemical, any chemical that can be used to treat fungi-infested plants and seeds. So this can help you. Say, for instance, you planted yam or maybe pumpkin which is the ugu we call it now in the marketplace, you'd see some of them discolor to like a yellow, or you start to see patches on them, patches of holes in them. It
yellowish color.
Very
and
good.
All of that.
It then means that something is wrong underground. So you can spray a fungicide, and that's where you see that bag-like plastic. You know, they put it on their back and spray those things all around the farm so that they can deal with whatever fungi is affecting
the crops or the
so that
plants.
it can grow.
You know, Martha, when I tell you that I farm more than you think I'm joking. Wow. I'm a senior farmer right here.
Well done. Take your I give you your
now those days before I grew up to begin to know if there are fungicide, what is it called? Fungicide that can be applied to crop, right? I used to watch my dad before we plant yam. He would tell you somebody else somewhere applying something liquid, black lye. I don't know what that was, but I think it was traditionally made. Traditionally made. So they apply it on either the yams, and then some other persons is taking it to the person that is planting it and all of that. So when I asked him, and he said, yes, if you don't do this on the ground, termites might get to eat the yam, or the yam will grow and will not grow healthy because there are going to be some ants and
see those holes,
all those holes that will spoil the yam and all of that.
Basically.
So now I understand why this is very necessary. In some, for vegetable, we have this liquid one we usually spray on top the leaf. So that those fungicide will not come and destroy it. So
yes,
I'm thinking about that.
Take your flowers. I already told you guys.
You are talking to a senior farmer, right?
I'm not a farmer. I already told you guys I'm a soft I'm all for the soft life. So just count me out, okay? Anyways, that's it. And then we have genetically modified organism. Now we have heard about genetically modified organisms everywhere because now we have cases like a tuber of yam that looks bigger than the usual, or watermelons that look bigger than the usual. Now, even for things like cherry, which is the agbalumo that we all eat, we now hear that they are genetically modified ones as well. They now look bigger than the usual. Normally, when you buy cherries, it's bitter. It has a slappy. But now taste. They have genetically modified it so much so that they're always going to be sweet. And once you see a genetically modified crop, you would know because their DNA have been different. Scientifically altered. Now, what are genetically modified organisms? Genetically, okay, so let's just be calling it GMO crops. Yes. Genetically modified organism crops, they are those in which the plant's DNA have been scientifically altered. Now, why are they altered? They are altered to produce certain characteristics like greater fruit yield, better color, bigger sizes, and all of that, or resistance to pests. So, some of these organically produced foods, they are prone to pests because some of these pests also need the nutrients that you need from this crop or this plant.
Now, talking about that, if you see chicken, there are some chicken that are rear bigger, and in less than 1 month they are looking bigger than their usual size.
They are also genetically modified, and it's based on their feed. For that is based on the field, but for the plants now, they have been scientifically altered to produce these characteristics: greater fruit yield, bigger sizes, better color, and resistance to pests. Now, these GMOs are controversial because some people believe this modification goes beyond traditional farming and plant breeding, and could accelerate the extinction of certain strains of seeds. And that's why you see people say stick to organic food. And again, the first lady one time came out and encouraged Nigerians to engage in subsistence farming. That's the ones you can do from your house. They have the full and the complete nutrients. Now, I for one cannot tell you for a fact that if a crop is genetically modified, it takes away the original nutrients and takes away all the nutrients from it. I cannot tell you that. But some people believe that these modifications, they go beyond the traditional system of farming and plant breeding, and now they could now encourage an extinction of the strain of certain seeds. So they can now tell you, just like the doctor, or people who want to do surrogacy,
or those paramedics.
You IVF, where they say you bring your sperm, you bring your
do
egg,
this one and all
then
of that.
we have a donor, we have a carrier, someone who will carry the head.
For the proper
so genetically modified now, they can now say, okay, let's bring this together, bring that together, so that we can grow a cucumber that is looking bigger in size, that is looking better in color, and maybe probably sweeter. So these genetically modified organism crops, they are crops which have been altered with. And personally, as Africans, we think anything that its original state has been altered can cause illnesses. So some believe that, while others believe, it's just an easier way of doing things, because if I can genetically modify a crop and prevent pests from affecting it, why
to give me bigger
so why
won't I?
So anyways, whatever works for you, that's about it. Soon we'll be having these professionals tell us why we should engage in genetically modified organisms.
We didn't even open the phone lines. Probably somebody might have something to say.
We're not opening yet. We're just talking based on our studies and our personal research. When professionals come, they'll be able to help you throw more light on these things we're talking about, which means that you'll be able to ask questions and you'll be getting clarifications moving forward. Now let's talk about herbicides. We've not even gone on anybody we've been talking about. Anyways, let's kill it that way. Herbicides is a chemical, any chemical that is applied to undesirable plants, such as weeds, to kill them. They can also be organic or inorganic. These days, we do the inorganic. We see these people, they're people who are specialists.
Yes, that's why when you take them to do this, to apply this on your plant, you'll see that as they are spraying it with that machine on their back, it will kill only the weeds and leave your plant.
Yes, because what that does is it helps you concentrate on what you do not need, undesirable plants. But but if you come and sprinkle it everywhere, you might now kill the plants that you desire to. So yes, herbicides are chemicals that are applied to undesirable plants to kill them, like weeds. So they can also be organic or inorganic. Irrigation is something we used to sing song in agriculture class in school. It's providing water for fields and crops.
I tell you, this segment is really, really, really refreshing my mind and my brain to back then in secondary school.
So irrigation is the act of providing water to fields and to crops through sprinklers, hoses, or other means. You see people now have these things in their farmlands. It's buried on the ground, and it can just help you. It spins, you know, and it sprinkles water around all of it. That's that. Should I say an artificial? Is it a manual system of watering,
your plant?
So instead of
without doing that stress that we used to do, you get water, use your hand,
and all of that,
and be fetching.
So it makes it super easy. Now we have been saying genetically modified, organic, inorganic. So what are organic crops? Organic crops are those crops that are grown without synthetic chemicals. So they don't have any chemical whatsoever. And you cannot place that directly opposite of genetically modified organisms. Now, there are chemicals that are used to help the growth, the color, and the size, and whatever we have talked about. But organic crops are grown without any of these chemicals. So you can say they are plants that are grown or are cultivated in its truest forms. Now let's move on to pesticides. Pesticides is any chemical that kills insects harmful to plants. There are insects that are harmful to pumpkin, insects that are harmful to corn, all of these things. Any chemical that is used to kill insects that is harmful to plants or that are harmful to plants is called a pesticide. Now the chemical also may be organic or inorganic. Some pesticides can also kill the plant if you have used them improperly, and that's why the manual one at the back it's easy because the focus and the concentration is on a particular place. So you don't want it here. There's no need spraying it over there. They produce their produce is treated with pesticide must be washed clean before eating. So if you're producing yam and you have sprayed not yam now to something like garden egg, all of these things that you can just eat on the go, all of these things you must wash them properly before eating them. Now, let's talk about silage.
Silage. Talking about silage is feed stored in an airtight silo.
What is
in an airtight silo? The feed is typically grass or other fodder materials that can be used as food for the winter.
It's basically to keep it fresh.
So
these silos, they are airtight containers. It's just like beans now.
Like beans, where you have all those.
You put it in jerry cans.
Yes.
Now that's can be said it's a silo for that beans, but
kind of
it is stored in an airtight silo.
So you cover them very well. That's how you preserve those part of it. Okay.
Now what is a silo?
Okay, silo shaped almost like a rocket or a launch pad. Yeah, a silo is a large cylindrical building for holding animals' feed. Yeah.
So the beans is, should I call it? The containers you saw, it save the beans, is just like, should I say, an artificial silo?
Kind of.
Silos are built, they're up there. If you watch some of these American movies, they're just up there, silver top, looking like a rocket. It's just used to save basically animal feed. And most of the people there, they live in their farms.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But yet, we're talking about thinning now. Thinning is the process of uprooting and removing weaker plants in order to direct more sunlight and natural resources towards healthier plants. So like the pumpkin we talked about, some of them, when you see them becoming yellowish and you cannot do anything to salvage them again, what you can do is to uproot them, remove them, so that the sunlight can be evenly distributed along the ones that are not weak and natural resources towards the plants that are healthier. It's called thinning. Now, tillage, which will be the last word we'll be learning today, is tilling the soil.
Means tearing, loosening up, and aerating the ground before planting. We talked about that a little bit, where we said if there is no enough space for the yam, you cannot get that size that you really need, because from the under is tight for it, and up is not too spacious for it to have that space to grow.
That being said, I hope that we did learn a thing or two. Let's run us through some of the terminologies, agricultural terminologies we talked about. We talked about acre, we talked about agribusiness, we talked about agriculture, agronomy, aquaculture, bovine, bushel, co-op, that's also known as farmer cooperative.
Yes.
There's a combine, commodities,
compost, contour farming, cover crop, and crop itself, crop rotation. We also talked about erosion, ethanol. We talked about feed, fertilizers, fodder, fungicide, genetically modified organisms, that's a GMO, herbicide, irrigation, organic, pesticide, silage, silo, and thinning. Is that thinning or thinning?
Thinning and
tillage.
Thank you guys so much. I hope that you learned one or two, because of course, trust me, we did learn.
I did
as well.
Especially for the fact that it took me back to remember those days in school, agriculture classes.
Anyways, thank you guys so much. We're heading down to the next hour, where we're talking about the national core values. And but today we will be playing more music in that area.
Yeah, because it's Salah. Because it's Salah.
You guys
let's
enjoy.
Not bore you with a whole lot of talk. Let's have fun.
At least you know agriculture now on Salah. You don't go anywhere. You guys keep it locked in here. It's Martha and Holy Ray. You can trust that we'll be right back.
Nigeria is a country blessed with fertile ground, with our fields spread across